Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NewsBrowse News broadcast. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced during his official visit to Kuwait on Wednesday that technical negotiations between the United States and Iran are expected to resume early next week, likely on June 29th or 30 in Switzerland. According to Sinhuanet, this development follows the signing of a peace memorandum of understanding on June 18th, which aims to de-escalate tensions and end conflicts on all fronts. Prior to this, Iranian and U.S. delegations held high-level consultations in Switzerland, facilitated by Pakistan and Qatar. During his regional tour, which also includes visits to the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, Rubio emphasized the U.S. commitment to working closely with Gulf partners. Additionally, the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait officially resumed operations at midnight on Wednesday following a 4-month closure caused by regional security threats. While providing further details remains limited, the upcoming talks signify ongoing efforts to implement the recently established peace framework. According to Al Jazeera, Colombia's far-right president-elect, Abelardo de la Espriella, has pledged to restore and strengthen diplomatic relations with Israel. The announcement followed a congratulatory call from Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar. De la Espriella, a political newcomer who won a razor-thin runoff election on June 21, 2026, promised that Colombia would become a loyal and steadfast ally to Israel. This marks a major shift from the foreign policy of outgoing leftist President Gustavo Petro. During his 4-year term, Petro was highly critical of Israel's military campaign in Gaza, calling it a genocide, which led to a complete rupture of diplomatic ties, the expulsion of Israeli diplomats, and the termination of a bilateral free trade agreement. Additionally, Petro's actions strained relations with the United States. De la Espriella's party, Defenders of the Homeland, has also reaffirmed its commitment to rebuilding alliances with the right-wing governments of both Israel and the United States, signaling a significant geopolitical pivot for the South American nation. According to Al Jazeera, top European leaders from the European Group of Five, E5, met in Berlin to pledge their strong support for Ukraine ahead of the upcoming NATO summit in Ankara this July. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz hosted the meeting, which included French President Emmanuel Macron, outgoing British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Following a video call with NATO chief Mark Rutte, the leaders released a joint statement vowing to substantially support Ukraine's defense, maintain sanctions on Russia, and bolster Ukraine's energy sector resilience. Al Jazeera's correspondent noted that the meeting aimed to send a unified message to U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin regarding the E5's readiness to fulfill their defense obligations. Additionally, the leaders discussed the possibility of a military mission in the Strait of Hormuz, contingent on certain conditions such as a U.S.-Iran ceasefire agreement. The European heads of state also highly praised outgoing UK Prime Minister Starmer for his strategic decisions and collaborative efforts over the past 2 years. According to UPI, the Israeli military has surrounded a strategic underground base in southern Lebanon, trapping dozens of Hezbollah militants inside. The complex, located beneath the Ali al-Taher Ridge near the village of Tebnit, was built over a span of 20 years with assistance from Iran. Despite a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah, clashes have continued in the area. Israeli officials report that the trapped fighters are currently running out of essential supplies. Tensions remain high as the military recently killed at least 2 people in the vicinity, whom Israel identified as Hezbollah operatives, while Hezbollah claimed they were civilians. The military standoff poses a potential threat to ongoing regional peace negotiations mediated by international players. Additionally, Israeli military leaders are reportedly concerned that other Hezbollah operatives in the region may attempt to carry out kidnapping attacks against Israeli forces to secure leverage for the release of the trapped fighters. In response, Israeli troops on the ground have been ordered to remain in pairs or larger groups at all times to mitigate the risk of abduction. According to a report by Global News, U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright announced that approximately 20 million barrels of crude oil carried by around 72 tankers have exited the Strait of Hormuz over the past 24 hours. This massive movement of oil follows an initial agreement between the United States and Iran to end their recent war, which had severely disrupted shipments through the crucial Middle East waterway for months. Wright emphasized that the reopening of the transit route strips Iran of its primary geopolitical leverage, stating that the country will no longer have the ability to close the strait. In response to the easing of supply anxieties, benchmark oil prices plummeted by more than $3 on Wednesday, reaching their lowest levels since before the conflict began in February. Prior to the ceasefire, the blockade of the narrow strait had cut off approximately 1/5 of the world's global crude supply. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.